Hey everyone, and welcome back to Rawlins, Rambles, or R Cubed. I want to start off with a question that came to my mind this morning. Do we know, really know and live it out, how privileged we are? Do you wake up thinking about something other than your health? Then you, like me, are so privileged. Did you wake up thinking about something other than scrambling together funds for lunch and dinner? Then you, like me, are so privileged in terms of the wealth we have. Do you wake up thinking about, what am I going to do at some point today in terms of, you get to plan out or have flexibility and decide for yourself what you're going to do? You are so privileged in terms of the power and influence you have over even just your life and probably other lives as well. Three things, why am I thinking about this question? Three things happened to me this week that made me think about privilege and what I'm doing with mine, I guess. One, I heard a fantastic sermon by Andy Stanley on power, influence, and wealth. You should give it a listen. It just talks about, the power, influence, and wealth we have and how our world tells us we should use it. The second is the SDG 5 is actually on gender inequality, and so that brought to my mind my privilege and a TED Talk I watched on it, and then spending time with toddlers, my little cousins Xander and Lyndon, and they're so adorable. So what were the takeaways? First, we are so blind to our privilege. That was one of the quotes from the TED Talk. Privilege is invisible to those who hold it. And it's just like, man, if you are not really searching for it, you can miss how privileged, how lucky, how grateful you should be. Second, which is kind of tied to that, our autopilot. So if we don't actually take a second to think about how privileged we are, our cruise control of life is, our default setting is to conserve, to store, or to even accumulate those things, our privilege for ourselves. So our power, our influence, our wealth, our baseline is, okay, let's get more, even if we don't even appreciate what we have right now. Third, kids do not do that. Kids exude that feeling of meeting each day as an absolute privilege. They know, oh man, they are happy to be alive. They know how much of a gift each day is. Every walk to the park is a race. Every moment of the day is an opportunity to engage with other people, inviting us to play games of tag and, picking up sticks and making up wild fantasy worlds. It's unbelievable. Just they live with that awe. They live with that wonder. And it's like, oh man, no wonder we were told to live life approaching it with like the mind of a child, like that exploration, it's just understanding how privileged they are to be alive. And it's like, wow, so inspiring to take that into my life. Fourth, Christ from the sermon is Christ demonstrated a life of using power, influence, and wealth, not for ourselves, but for other people, which obviously ties into both privilege and sustainable development, our sustainability, not just for us, but for others. And it's just, oh man, Christ shows that, demonstrates that, and just challenges us that whatever privilege you have and I have, whatever power, wealth, influence, health that we have, are we using it for ourselves or others? With that in mind, we look at SDG 5, gender equality, achieving gender equality and empower all women and girls. That's the goal. What are the targets? Because each SDG has targets. So end all forms of discrimination and violence against women, including sex trafficking, end childhood or forced marriage and female genital mutilation that happens around the world. Recognize the value of unpaid domestic work, all the work that our economy doesn't really take into account. Recognize it with public services. Ensure that women are participating in our governments, and not just say, here's the option, but encourage them to do so. Ensure access to reproductive health programs. Reform social structures to allow women to own land as easily as men do, because a lot of areas in the world that's not the case. Establish gender equality, promoting policy within a country's legislation. So what's the situation? Well, 1 in 5 girls experience and women have experienced physical and or sexual violence in their lifetime. 50% of all women murder victims are killed by those that are intimately related to them, versus 6% for men. Unbelievable statistic. A quarter of all women are married before the age of 18, which just tells you, oh man, we have such a skewed view of marriage and equality. Not saying that everyone married before 18 is being influenced by someone else, but it feels like when I was 18, I was not ready to get married. That equates to 15 million child marriages a year. 15 million a year. Domestic work is 3 times more done by the hands of women than men. And globally, only 23% of political seats are filled by political positions are filled by women. The Human Development Index, to put this into perspective, has this to say about the severity of gender inequality. And they look at all the world's issues. Many groups are disadvantaged, but the systemic deprivations facing women are the most extreme barrier to global progress in human development. The biggest issue, the biggest hurdle we have to get over in development in terms of raising people up, in terms of creating a sustainable world, is gender inequality. That's what they say. Climate change, no. Droughts, no. War, no. Poverty, no. Hunger, no. No, gender inequality will be the stepping stone, the cornerstone. Wow. So what do women face around the world? Excluded from household decision making. They face sex-selective abortion, less nutrition, less education, less land ownership opportunity, face more poverty. A quarter of them are abused. They suffer genital mutilation and acid attacks. There are 5,000 honor killings a year. 5,000 honor killings. I didn't even know honor killings still happen. 5,000 of them a year. And even for countries, it represents, this gender inequality represents an income loss of at the highest 27%, because we say, oh, women aren't as good as men. In Canada, 74 cents per dollar are earned for women compared to men. Half have faced gender-based violence. Only just over a quarter of all political electees are female, as well as Canadian women do twice as many hours of unpaid work as their male counterparts, twice as much. A massive issue in Canada as well as around the world: sex trafficking, prostitution, pornography industry, sexual assaults. Just looking at sex trafficking, it's $99 billion a year. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. And who are the victims? 96% of those who are trafficked are women and girls. 96. Talk about inequality. So why is this issue so important for sustainable development? Why does the HDI say it's the most? Because 50% of the world is women, and that is the largest group of people being discriminated against right now. But also this idea of, okay, if we put others before ourselves, if men put women before themselves, then there's massive overall benefit. This isn't only a Christian idea. This is sustainable thinking, not just ourselves, but others. Equal importance. It's equally important to be a man and a woman in this world. So how is it good for everyone? Well, the countries with the highest gender equality are also, ranked highest on the happiness index. Companies who have high rates of gender equality, they have lower job turnover rates, higher job satisfaction, higher job productivity. At the family unit, the smallest, most important unit of community, I believe. Children. So if men share that unpaid work, that unpaid domestic work we were talking about, so caring for elders, doing homework with their kids, cooking for the family. If they engage as a partner with their wives on this, children do better in school. They report higher achievement levels, lower absenteeism. They are less likely to be diagnosed with ADHD, less likely to go see a psychiatrist, less likely to be put on medication. How about the wives? The wives are healthier. They're less likely to see a therapist, less likely to be diagnosed with depression, more likely to get physical exercise, and report, higher marital satisfaction. And not just others. Look, when we focus on others, it doesn't just help others. It helps us too. So the men, they smoke less, they drink less, they use recreational drugs less, they have less depression, less visits to the ER, less likely to see a therapist themselves, and they use and rely on prescription medicine less. I know you can't approach it with, it's going to be good for me, but look at the benefits of focusing on others, living for others, living in a sustainable way, or living as Christ teaches us to live, that selfless, self-sacrificial love for other people. Which brings me to, how then shall we live? Don't assume that because you can't see or feel it, inequality doesn't exist, or that you don't have privilege. That just probably tells us what side of the line that we stand on, who we're probably benefiting if we can't see it. So that TED Talk about gender inequality. Privilege is invisible to those who hold it. So what can we do about it? Well, start seeing it, read about it. There's a gender inequality index put out and a gender inequality report each year by the UN talking about, hey, this is the reality. This is scientific evidence, statistics. It does exist. Read about it. Understand where and what your privilege is. And then second, so if you figured out how privileged you are, how can you use your privilege, your power, your wealth, your influence, whatever, to break the wall down rather than reinforce it? Remember that sermon by Andy Stanley saying, hey, let's not use it for ourselves. Let's use it for other people. What does that look like then? One article, I think in CBC, said, hey, if you see a woman who is right for a leadership position in your community, tell them, encourage them, and nonstop. Tell them that they're the best for this situation, that they're the best for that position, that we as a community need you. That active use of your power, your influence, and even your wealth, if you're supporting, that is how you can use power, your privilege for other people, and for women specifically this week. And follow the example of Engineers Without Borders who focus on not only social enterprises, so socially minded organizations, but they focus on women-led social enterprises in sub-Saharan Africa. So you can even support them financially if wealth is one of your sources of privilege. And 5, just because it is doesn't mean it should be. I think, we really have to think critically about the social constructs of the world we live in and why things happen the way they do. And if that's the way to do it, just because, my parents do it this way, or my friends do it this way, or all the world around me does it this way. Is that what we're called to? If you're a Christian, it's not. There is a way better way to do it. And look, these SDGs are saying the world is starting to maybe wake up to this idea of, hey, me is not the answer. Others is. So just hope you have a great week. Can't wait for next one. Yeah.